Welcome to the Entrepreneur's Trip. I am so excited. This is our first podcast video cast. We've been planning, and this has been amazing to see this come to fruition. So we are XTC. I'm Xaulanda.
I'm Tristian.
And I'm Chris.
And as entrepreneurs starting and growing our businesses, we know that it is a destination that you're looking towards, but the journey getting there can be a trip. And we want to be your travel companions and inject a dose of XTC as we explore real life conversations about navigating the world of entrepreneurship in the US and in the Caribbean. So, guys, did you know that according to the US Small Business Administration in 2020, there were 31.7 million small businesses in the US?
Wow.
5.2 million are self-employed minorities, and approximately 3.7 million are micro businesses with 1 to 10 employees. Now, when you look at the Caribbean, there's a 2021 article that is called The Caribbean Business Formation versus the US. And the latest facts say that 11 out of 16 Caribbean countries have made significant changes to their business reform and legislation in the last 2 to 5 years alone. And I'm sure COVID had a lot to do with those reforms, right? So making the Caribbean an attractive option for many business owners. And what's cool about that stat is Tristian's a Caribbean business owner and Chris is a US business owner, as I am, right? So we're all in the US or Caribbean or trying to straddle both, which is what I'm doing. So as we see the increase of business formation both in the US and the Caribbean, that means more and more people are starting businesses, which can be both exciting and daunting. But it can also feel pretty lonely as you try to figure out all the different nuances of starting and running a business, from ideation to startup, growth, and mature. So just last week, I was talking to an entrepreneur that has several companies, and we were talking about running a business as well as the mental and physical toll it can take, because it is a lot of work. And in our exchange, this is what she says, and I'm quoting her. The climb takes a lot on a person's life if they are fully committed, do not have a co-founder or funds to hire. This is fucking hard, to be totally honest. So, Chris, you're going to need to bleep that. And that's the sentiment as to why we started this podcast. You don't have to do it alone. And our goal is to create a platform not only for us as hosts to be able to share ideas, but for other entrepreneurs to come and share the real deal about starting and growing a business. So in this first podcast, we're going to talk about beyond the what and how of entrepreneurship. Sounds good?
Sounds great.
Sounds great. All right. So, guys, tell me a little bit about how you started your business.
Want the tea to go first?
Do we do
Always off
tea?
top.
I'll take it.
C. All right, Chris.
C comes before T in the alphabet. So.
Yes.
That's why I appreciate you.
Right.
And T before X.
Yes.
So, yeah, basically my entrepreneurial journey, in short, was kind of, it was something I'd always thought that I was wanted to do, but I was a wantrepreneur for a number of years. Got an education in production, but then spent almost a decade in marketing. And it wasn't until a situation occurred, Hurricane Maria hit the island of Puerto Rico, and basically devastated the island as a Category 5 storm. And living in Orlando, where I was working in marketing and nonprofit space, a lot in diversity, equity, inclusion space, I knew a lot of Puerto Ricans who were struggling to connect with family and friends on the island, up to weeks and sometimes even up to a month before they heard from anybody. And so myself, being in marketing, having wanted to go do my entrepreneurial thing at some point, having a production background, I was kind of like, well, who else is going to tell this story? Puerto Ricans can tell the story, but as a lot of minorities struggle in the mainland U.S. Sometimes it's tough to get a voice when you are
Definitely.
not a Caucasian male, in that space. So I decided to quit my job, start a business, and basically start this business around producing this film. So it was a passion project for sure, but I had every goal of creating a business around it. And I don't necessarily give that advice to just take that jump right away, um, which we'll get to at another point, I'm sure, in this podcast or throughout these episodes. But yeah, that's kind of how I got my start. It was a need of forced entry, I guess, to saying it's either now or I'm just going to continue to sit on the sidelines.
So,
Right.
Chris, you were a gringo in Puerto Rico.
I wasn't going to go Puerto Rico.
The nice thing about Chris is he's woke. He's our president. And he's being really, really modest because his documentary is Hurricane Maria, the American Dream. So it is such a heartfelt, thought-provoking story about a family navigating, their life in Puerto Rico during and after the hurricane and the effects of it. And it really hits home because, in the U.S. Virgin Islands, we were also affected by Hurricane Maria, Hurricane Irma. I remember going through Hurricane Hugo, so we definitely can feel that energy and that empathy for our Boricua and our Puerto Rican families over there. So we totally, totally get it. So, my Krujan from the USPI.
Yo. Well, I don't have.
Wagwan.
I just there. I don't have a compelling story like Chris. My story was just a little different. I started from high school actually. I remember it was about maybe 10, 11th grade. 10, 11th grade, but I started doing video from 7th grade. I started at St. Anne's Catholic Church. So we would videotape the masses, do weddings, and just a couple different things in between. I started with a guy, his name was John Mattelmi. So with John, he really took me under his wing. I would go everywhere, everywhere with him, no matter what it was he was shooting, when he was shooting. And that's how I got in my foundation in video production. So he taught me. I remember we have these Dominican masses. They last about three. It used to be about 3 hours, and I remember, the 3 hour mass because they do it in both Creole French and English. So once they do one part, then they translate it to English, but it's Catholic. So we really follow the mass either which way. We don't really need to know what it is. I want to say they're saying. That might be why most of us sleep in church. But yeah. So from there, I remember starting out. It was like, imagine being about maybe like 11, 12, being told that you have to stand for a 3 hour mass because if you sit, you then start to shoot lazy, and that was the start of my discipline. So I started in 7th grade. By 10th grade, I was No, by 9th grade, I was managing the studio, and by 10th grade, I started doing video productions on my own, working with the local TV production companies. And I remember I just had this dream. I was like, I'm gonna start my own TV station. I had no idea what it is I was talking about, and had no idea what it would take. But that was the start of my entrepreneurial dream. I had a teacher, Miss Cummings, Natasha Cummings. And what ended up happening is like she really helped me to shape it out. She was an English teacher, so she really made me write it out, write what it is that I wanted. So in that way, these goals became, I want to say, more tangible goals. Unbeknownst to me, that was really and truly the start of it all. I left, went to college, had an opportunity to go to ESPN, and then I heard about, I want to say, climbing the ladder. So usually in the United States, major companies, video production, we live very long. So there's not much room for progress until we kind of open up different, I want to say, different production houses. So I started from ESPN in Connecticut. I kind of got an offer, and I was like, nope, I really want to go home because I really want to give back to my community. I'm definitely going to start this business. And by 2008, I came back. kind of tricked the school. I told them I was going to do a practicum. Took my practicum to really start the business and did it on just that, just starting a business. Worked with a couple of promoters, did some work for them, so in that way I could get a reference back to college to say I was actually doing some work. But that was it. I started in about '08, '09. I was back home with no real guidance, just honestly figuring it out, just trying to figure it out. The one thing I did know is that it was my passion. So um started a network, meet a lot of people. That's how it is. I met Xaulanda, I think it was about maybe a year or two later,
Mhm.
working on a project with her. That was an amazing, amazing experience.
That's so
And that's
much fun.
just to show like the bonds that I made on
Mhm.
starting my entrepreneurial journey. And I wonder what else happened. And that was it. It was not an easy journey. The hard part was figuring out what it is you wanted to do, because at this point in time, there's nobody telling you got to punch this clock, you got to do this. There's no real guidelines. I just really had a great support group, and that's exactly what we're speaking to, is that we don't have to do it alone. So to
Mhm.
give you a really quick guy called my uncle. It was Kendall and Danny for A Plus Science, and what they did for me was they offered me a space to use, a rent free space
Mhm.
to use
Mhm.
at their science shop, and that's what I use as my office space. Lunch, sometimes you ain't got money for lunch, but it didn't matter because they were like, as long as you're here in the Caribbean,
Mhm.
as long as you're here, the one thing you won't do is go hungry. You
Mm.
know,
Mhm.
we just we worked together on everything at that point in time. And that was it. And that's it. We're to this day we're still family. We still do we celebrate different things together, takes trips together. It's a really fun experience when you're not taking this trip alone. So no matter what it is that you feel you're going through, you're not the only one, and
Mhm.
it's always fun to take these trips with friends, right,
Oh,
Shalana?
absolutely. Talking about when we met, oh my gosh, the first time I had the opportunity to work with Tristan, I was the chief of communications and community connectivity at the Governor Wangui Hospital. And we created some amazing videos that featured the staff and the community. And it was just very audacious because we didn't have a lot of funds and we had very tight deadlines to get things
Right.
done. But I think it really stretched our muscles and also gave us the foresight to be able to try to run our companies in the same way, because a lot of small businesses don't have a lot of funds, they don't have a lot of time, they don't have a lot of
True.
resources, but it still needs to get done, right?
And one thing
And
though,
so
Shalana, not to
mhm,
cut you off, but the one thing that was very key in those moments is that we had someone that had a vision. And that's the
yes.
one thing that even Chris kind of touched on, is sometimes you just need somebody with that vision. It's your vision,
Mhm.
it's somebody else's vision to kind of bring things together, because Jeff Nelson was an amazing visionary at that time.
He was absolutely. And it's really, small business is taking an idea and really manifesting it into the
Yep.
real business that it is, right? And so, just a little bit about my entrepreneurial journey. This is not my first ride at the rodeo. I I tried doing this entrepreneurship thing before, and let me tell you, people, it is hard.
Yep.
So when we talked about the podcast and we were coming up with the name and we said the entrepreneur's trip, it's definitely a journey, but my journey, I have trip and fall flat on my face a couple times in trying to run a business because it is difficult.
Mhm.
And what's different then to what how I'm doing it now is that, to your point, Tristan, that inner circle that you have of people who are around you to support you really helps to make this journey a little bit less daunting, right? So I've had two businesses. I tripped and fell. I got back up. And actually, when the idea for the Shaskai group came up, I was on 408 driving with my daughter Shaskia. And I was in my car and I got a call from our friend Dwight Dillon. And he was like, Joanna, I need your advice. Tell me. And he's a real estate broker, he has his own real estate business. And we're talking strategy and we're coming up with an action plan, and we're getting all excited. I'm like, oh, this is going to be great for you. And so we hang up and my daughter turns to me and she's like, so your friends that own businesses always calling you, when you going to start your business?
Mm.
And I looked at her and I was like, oh crap. So what's my out here? What's my out? Because it's you have that fear, And my response to her was, well, if I'm going to start a business, because I've been there, done that, you got to do it with me. And she was like, okay. And I was like, she said yes. Oh, what excuse do I have now? I don't have an excuse. I mean, how do you tell your kids something and they challenge you on it and then you
Right.
don't deliver? And so she was the reason for the Just Guy group, honestly, because I was really, really scared. I'm still scared a lot of the time, but I think being an entrepreneur, you learn to still move forward in light of the fears that you have or the challenges that you're experiencing. And to the whole point of this conversation, it makes it so much easier when you're doing it with people who are on a similar journey that you can bounce ideas off of, that you can get feedback, and who would be brutally honest and say, Xaulanda, that sounds like crap, or you're full. And I'm like, let me rethink that, right? So
That's what it takes sometimes. Because even when we say that you're full of crap, this is happening. What we're able to do is pick the true essence from it, though. So the
yes.
whole thing might not be something that was tangible, but they're
Mm-hmm.
the focus points. Because sometimes we start out and we're like, I'm gonna start a business and I'm gonna change the world, and you're like, all right. So let's be real, Tristan. So what you're gonna do is that we could start the business, and let's just start with a community first. So let's just start with
Mm-hmm.
X goals first,
Yeah.
and that's the beauty of the companionship along the trip,
Yep.
especially when you have
Mm-hmm.
honest friends. You need real friends though, not yes
Mm-hmm.
man, real
Oh
friends.
yeah.
Hmm.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And I,
So.
I would say that in addition to having your friends be there to be a sounding board and helping you, one of the biggest things that I've learned is you still have to stay true to who you are, and make
Mm-hmm.
sure that those influence are truly supporting your goals and not being like, oh, well, you're good at this, so you could do this as well, and you can do all these other
Right,
things. As I mentioned, I maybe didn't approach entrepreneurship in the best way possible, and I had some unrealistic goals leading into it as far as what I was gonna, the amount of clients I was gonna get right off the bat and stuff, and you really have to build that up. But for me, I actually became started off as what I thought was going to be a niche market. Then
Mm-hmm.
everybody told me all these other things I could or should be
right.
doing because of my skills. And then I became a catch-all for everything. And then I was just
Mm-hmm.
another production guy who could do
Yeah.
all these things. And it's taken me a while to realize to focus back to who I was and like the initial reasons for starting out. So like never lose sight of that. Your
Mm-hmm.
the why, and even Xaulanda, for you is your daughter challenged you.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, well, I have to then step up and
Mm-hmm.
do this. So it's I don't know, the trip has to be yes, not one taken alone. But don't
Mm-hmm.
forget that you're part of the trip as well, and your
Right.
vision is driving the plane.
Right.
Absolutely.
It's our vision, it's our passion, and it has to be organic.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And Chris, like to what you were saying is that I just really don't think there's a right way about going about it.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Shalanda's story, like where she failed, like I don't think we're honest enough a lot of times to say like we have failed.
Right.
What the only thing we post is our glory stories,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I hit this milestone and I did that milestone, but nobody heard that it took us 10 times to get to that milestone.
Yep.
Um, the late nights when you're up and you're doing, well, for me, the late nights I was out crunching these hours, and then they're like, but you're putting in this much hour. Do you know the store down the street pays like 10 times that much? Or do you know the salary is guaranteed at this point in time? And it's like what you're saying, Chris, to a certain point, to a point too, is that then you become that catch-all. Then you're
Yep.
you're spreading yourself thin with no real specialization in any area, and
Mm-hmm.
that is very very daunting until, like you said, you come back to your true form. You're organic about what it is that you wanted to do. And I was
Hmm.
like, you know what? I don't want to do pictures. I don't want to do anything else. I love editing. I'll edit. I'll be this
Hmm.
videographer, and this is all I do. I just shoot and I edit, and that's it. I didn't need to go out and be. Well, we're gonna do lighting. We're gonna do all this. These things, like, you end up learning a lot more, and then
Hmm.
you're open to jobs where it is you just specialize in those things,
Right.
and that's the beauty of it. Is that even though you can do those things, again, it's us coming together. It's that collaboration where now I don't have to shoot video on my next production. I'm out there and I'm holding lights for Chris.
Yep.
So Chris is shooting the videos, Xaulanda is doing the interviews, and now we're coming together where we're still doing what it is that we love to do
Hmm.
in a I want to say micro in a micro part of it for macro vision.
Mm.
Yes.
So
Yeah. Definitely. It's a duality in entrepreneurship that I don't think a lot of people talk about or consider, is that, you have all of these big ideas, right? Which can be realized in true form. The thing is that you got to be able to break it down with a intentional focus so that you take step by step to be able to make it happen.
Yep.
And so, to your point, Chris, having people around saying, "Oh, you could be good at this, or you could do this, or you can do this," that's probably true. You're probably really good at all of those things, but particularly when you're a solopreneur,
Yes.
it's not like you can be all things to all people. You can do all projects.
Yep.
You really have to be able to manage your focus and manage your energy, because this is a lot of work and
Yep.
it's tiring. And the thing is that as entrepreneurs, you take this risk without no guaranteed reward,
Exactly.
you know? So
Yep.
that's where
there is
that
one
passion,
guarantee though. There
what it
is one guarantee.
guarantee. Well,
So
absolutely. That's my point.
which is what is it? Your satisfaction. That's it.
Hmm. Hmm.
That's it. Your personal satisfaction for whatever it is that you set out to do.
Mm.
Yep.
Anything past that is a bonus. The money is the bonus,
Absolutely.
is needed.
And I,
But that's our only guaranteed. That's our only guaranteed satisfaction.
And I
Anything else?
totally agree with that. And that's why the why and the passion behind why you start a business and why you continue your business is important. Because as much as we love our inner circle, we are in a society that's conditioned us to say, oh, you need to get this amount of money for this amount of time,
Yep.
or you want to be able to demonstrate your success. So, you have these social pressures of driving a particular car or trying to raise your kids or having a house or all of this stuff, and you have to really be able to say, is that society's expectations of
Right.
me? Or are those my expectations of myself? And how do I run
Right.
my business in a way that honors who I am, to Chris's
Hmm.
point, right? Can provide value to the community as we function within the society that we're in. And I think we learned that in 2020.
Yep.
Like,
Definitely.
we didn't learn that before. Hello, COVID taught us that, right?
Yep.
Definitely. I got a crazy story to go with that really, really quick. So
Okay.
when I went to start my business and I came home, the one thing you end up doing is a lot of research, a lot of
Mhm.
research.
Hmm.
So the question was, how much money do you need to live comfortable, right?
Mhm.
So I was reading up and I think I came across something and it said something like 80,000. At 80,000, you're at the perfect tax bracket where the taxes, I guess it doesn't bother you. You still got enough left over to do whatever it is that you want. So I'm like, man, we got to hit 80,000. Now, how do you divide this? Like, so 80 divided by the 12, I'm going to just do 10 because it's really easy. And I was
Mhm.
like, 8 grand a month. Like, okay, so this might be something that's feasible. And then you start. Like I told you, without my uncles when I started, it would have been nuts. I think
Mhm.
I made about 2,000 the first month. And I was like, okay, we're kind of off to a good start because at 2,000, 12 months, that's 24.
Yep.
I probably made 15,000 if I made 15 for that
Mhm.
year. It was exactly what you're saying. Like when you look at society and everything that it tells us, all our pressures, what it is that we don't realize is a lot of these things is us living way beyond our means.
Yep.
Yes.
So we definitely, like when you're becoming an entrepreneur, what ends up happening is that you learn very quickly it's not what it is that you want, but you operate more on a need basis.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I might want that Range Rover. However, I don't call it the Honda, that Focus, that one, your jalopy. The jalopy works. It gets us from here to there, and that's what it is that we really need. Is just that car, that
Mhm.
transport to take us wherever it is, and not necessarily um the things, the flashy things that we feel that we need in life. And that
Yep.
has, I feel that's been my curse even to this day.
Yep.
I just got
Mhm.
a Xaulanda seen it. I just got a 2000 Jetta, and everybody's like, "We're in 2021." That car is like 20 years old, and I'm like, I was wanted a Jetta, and it works.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, it gets you where you need to go.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
Cool. Well, guys, I've really enjoyed this conversation, and we're going to continue this because this is just the first episode, and we got more to share in this series. And we're going to really take a deeper dive into your unique entrepreneur's trip,
Mhm.
right? Because as we think on an industry standard, there's entrepreneurship, but each individual entrepreneur's trip is very unique. It's very different, right? And there's a plethora of information that can tell you how to do it, what you need to do. But having these real life conversations is where there's a gap in the honesty of this shit's hard
it is.
and I'm scared and I'm tripped up and I don't know if I'm going to be able to succeed after all of this work I'm investing into this company, but you still do it anyway, is what we're going to be talking about some more. So,
Love it.
yeah. Any last thoughts, guys?
My last thoughts for this episode is just don't be afraid. Give it a try. That's the only thing you could do. Try is the only word that is a word that doesn't really exist. And I'm going to tell you why. Because you either did it or you didn't. And so we
Mm-hmm.
say you try different things, but we only use the try to say that we didn't do it as good as we would have liked to have done it. So
Mm-hmm.
just give it a try. Just do it. Once you do it, learn from it, enjoy it, and just know that you're not alone.
Awesome.
What about you, Chris? Last thoughts?
Since Tristan gave a guarantee earlier about what entrepreneurship would give, I have one as well. Entrepreneurship will show you who you are,
Mm-hmm.
and that is a weighted line because
Yep.
that is both great and amazing because you will figure out who you are, what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, and everything in between. And it's worth the ride as long as knowing who you are also is who you are, like who you want to be. And a lot of people just focus on, oh, well, what do I do with my career? I'm not sure, like, which entrepreneurial venture should I track down? And a piece of advice that was given to me a long time ago that always stuck with me is uh, try to decide or figure out who you want to be, and then work backwards from that to figure out what you want to do. Because who you want to be will have all the people that helped you on your journey with
Mm-hmm.
you. It'll have you being
Mhm.
your best self,
That's deep.
and you'll figure out what to do to get there as long as you already have that vision. So.
Preach, Chris. Preach. He
I'm
dropped
happy
in
I went
some
before
nuggets,
you.
some good nuggets there, man. What? I was locked in. I was locked in. I hope listeners are locked in too. Listen, I have had such a great time having this conversation with you guys. I think my takeaway for this episode is yes, entrepreneurship is a trip, it is a journey, right? But if you decide to take this journey and you trip and fall flat on your face, get up, dust yourself off, and try again, right?
Mhm.
And it's going to be a trip. And hopefully, we'll be on that trip with you. So, thank you so much for listening to us. And we hope you will join us on our next episode of The Entrepreneur's Trip because we are your dose of XTC. I am Xaulanda.
I'm Tristan.
And I'm Chris.